Several years ago, there was an invitation to visit a kibbutz in Israel. And one evening after the storytelling, a young man came up to me and said, "There's something special about your stories. What is your secret?" What a beautiful question. No one had ever asked me this question before. So I turned to him and said, "I am the stories." He was only about 17 or 18 years old, but he understood. He understood. There was a sultan, and he had an only daughter who he loved very dearly. And one day he called his daughter to him and said, "Beloved daughter, you're now at an age where you must be married. And I am calling the princes from all of the realms so that you may choose a suitable husband." And suddenly tears fell out of the princess's eyes, and she said, but, and then she fell down into a dead faint from which she could not be awakened. So she was carried to her chamber, and she lay there pale and wan. And her father, the sultan, was almost distraught. His beloved daughter. So he sent out messengers out into the town to call anyone who could awaken his daughter, would have any wish that they had fulfilled. So it so happened that at that time there was a wandering dervish who came in to town, and he heard the messenger's cry. And he approached the messenger and said, "I can awaken the sultan's daughter." And so the messenger took the dervish back to the sultan's palace, and after making his greeting to the sultan, who agreed that he may enter the princess's chamber, he was taken to that room where the princess lay, now so pale, hardly breathing. And then the dervish said, "Please, call a scribe." And so a scribe was called with a parchment and pen ready to write. And then the dervish knelt down beside the princess's bed, took her hand in his as though he were a doctor feeling her pulse, and then he leant down to her ear and said, "Hussein, Akbar, Ali, Yusuf," and with the name Yusuf, her pulse began to beat. And the dervish said, "Write down the name Yusuf." And then he leant down again and he said, "Short, tall." The eyelids fluttered. "Write down tall." Grey, blue, brown. And again, the eyelids came popping up, brown. Diamonds, rubies, sapphires, pearls. And the eyelids opened. Pearls. Samarkand, Istanbul, Beirut, Bukhara. The princess's head came up and she began to waken. The dervish said, "The princess is in love with Yusuf, who is a pearl seller." And then the princess woke up and she confessed to her father, the sultan, that when her brother, the prince, had been married the year before and jewelers from all over the countries were invited, she'd fallen in love with Yusuf, the pearl seller, and she would not marry anyone but him. "Ha!" said the sultan, "No daughter of mine is going to marry a common pearl seller." But then the sultan remembered that he had a debt and a promise to fulfill with the dervish. So he turned to the dervish and he said, "I owe you a debt. I wish to fulfill any wish that you like to name." And the dervish said, "My wish is that you allow your daughter to marry the pearl seller. I will accept no other gift." And of course, the sultan had made a promise. He could not break his promise. So the princess was wedded to her pearl seller and lived a long life and had many sons. We have to dive very deep to understand this story. And when we recognize that we are the sultan, the princess, the dervish, the scribe, every element of every story, understanding comes. Thank you, Dushan, for you.